In the central deserts of Australia, there are routes that stretch for hundreds, sometimes thousands of kilometers. Not roads, not marked paths, but invisible lines that exist only in memory. And yet, for tens of thousands of years, people have crossed some of the harshest environments on Earth without maps, without written directions, and without losing their way. Because for them, the land itself was not something you looked at, it was something you remembered through sound, and to travel across it, they sang. Before European colonization, Aboriginal Australia was not a single culture, but hundreds of distinct language groups spread across an entire continent. These groups lived in environments ranging from desert interiors to coastal regions, often with no centralized political structure and no written language. Yet, despite this, knowledge of geography, water sources, seasonal movement, and survival routes was transmitted across generations with extreme precision. This transmission system is what later researchers called songlines. But that term is misleadingly simple because songlines were not just songs about places, they were structured pathways of movement embedded in oral tradition. In Aboriginal cosmology, ancestral beings, often called dreaming beings, are described as having moved across the land in the distant past. As they traveled, they shaped the physical world. They created rivers by moving through the earth. They formed rock formations. They established water holes and travel routes. Each action left a trace in the landscape, but just as importantly, each action was recorded in oral form, not as a written record, but as a sequence of songs. Each segment of terrain corresponded to a segment of narrative and melody, so the land and the song became structurally linked. When someone needed to travel across long distances, they didn't rely on visual navigation systems. They relied on memory sequences passed through teaching. A person would learn a song line tied to a specific route. As they moved through the landscape, they would sing parts of the song in order. Each verse corresponded to a landmark, a hill, a bend in a river, a water source, a distinctive rock formation. If you knew the correct sequence of the song, you could reconstruct the correct path through the land. Navigation and memory were not separate tasks, they were the same action. In a written map system, knowledge is externalized onto a fixed object, but in songlines, knowledge is distributed across three things at once: the land itself, the song sequence, and the person moving through it. This creates redundancy. Even if one generation loses part of the knowledge, it can be reconstructed through landscape cues, oral repetition, and collective memory practice. It is not fragile storage, it is living storage. And because the system is tied to movement in geography, forgetting a songline is not losing information, it is losing the ability to correctly interpret the environment. A map is static. You look at it from outside the world, but a songline is activated inside the world. You don't consult it, you perform it. This means knowledge is not separated from action, it is embedded in movement, and this creates a different kind of cognition. Memory is not retrieval, memory is navigation. What songlines reveal is not just an unusual cultural practice, they reveal something about human cognition itself. That memory does not have to be stored in symbols, it can be distributed across environments, across movement, across sound, and across generations of repeated experience. So, when we think of maps as the beginning of human navigation systems, songlines suggest something older, a system where the world itself was the archive, and to remember it, you had to walk it.